Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
Spoon, a new era starts soon. Be the first to own our groundbreaking new guitar from Martin. I think we should dish the goss, as they say nowadays. What do you know about this?
Well, what do I know about dish? Well, let's see. What do I know about it? I know that this is going to be very new for Martin, though there's certainly other people out there that have experimented with various ways to carve bracing that is in a non-traditional manner, and with the idea of trying to find something that brings additional tone enhancement. And that seems to be what's really down under it all when it comes to this new model. And I'd just like to say that we are recording this podcast on a certain unspecified date, and I just want to get your assurance that this will not see the light of day or get out on the internet or across the airwaves until the day we're allowed to talk about all of this stuff.
I promise. Cross my heart.
Good, because if I ever leak stuff about Martin's, upcoming new models and stuff like that, then I won't get to know about Martin's upcoming new models anymore. But here we are. We're in advance of the release of the NAMM models. We're going to be giving you some really cool information about the NAMM models. We just can't put them on the air until the day that Martin says we're allowed to. So this first model we're talking about is the GPCE Inception Maple. Ooh. That's right, GPCE Inception Maple. For those of you who don't know, we already aired an entire episode dedicated to Martin's new Inception guitars that are being introduced with the GPCE Inception Maple. And so we're going to go over it more quickly here so we can get through all the NAMM models, but please check out Maury's podcasts for the scoop episode about the GPCE Inception Maple if you haven't already heard it. So what can you tell me about the GPCE Inception model? What does GPCE stand for, to begin with?
That's the part I can tell you that I know. GPCE, Grand Performance, Cutaway, Electronics. So the GP is a body size from Martin, Grand Performance. C means cutaway. E means electronics. And the GPCE, in general, if you go back in time, that's not groundbreaking. That's not new. This is not the first time in 2024 that we're going to talk about a Grand Performance cutaway from Martin Guitar. But the Inception name here really brings something completely brand new to me, and I'm sure this is going to be the heart of the conversation here. It involves one-of-a-kind skeletonized scallop bracing and sonic channels inside the body for increased resonance and superior tone. Kidding aside, that's an extremely big deal.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the term skeletonized is something they've used before referring to tuners, where they were created in a way that there was space in the material itself so that they were lighter and you could see through them, kind of like an ornate Victorian key that you'd put in a door. And so they're taking that same name and they're using it on this new bracing system. This is still an X-braced guitar. It still has scalloped bracing in terms of the X-brace. It still has scalloped tone bars that you get on large body Martins like this, where you have two tone bars below the bridge plate. It still has little side bracings that come off approximately where the bridge plate is on the outside of the X-brace strut that are also scalloped. So it's got a lot of traditional Martin scalloping to it, but the X-brace itself on the thickest part of the brace is carved in a manner that has space in it. And so the first time I saw this illustrated. It reminded me of those long hallways you would see in medieval cathedrals, those outdoor hallways that had a roof and pillars or decorative holes in them, so you basically got the sunshine and the fresh air. That's what it reminds me of. So basically the inside of the X brace at the thickest part where the two braces come together is basically hollow because of all these like honeycombed holes, big holes and little holes. And when I say holes, they're not actually like perfectly round. They have geometric shape to them. So it's very cool. I mean, it looks beautiful, and it's interesting. They show you. You guys can now probably by now see online photos of these braces, and where they have the light hitting it, so you can see the light shining through the brace and making these long, really interesting, beautiful looking shadows. So very cool. So what's the point of this though?
Well, I would have to think you're going to dive back into the technology that was probably inherent when they first came out with the X bracing millions of years ago. You want the top to be light enough to be responsive, and you want the actual guitar. Tim Teal would often joke that the best guitars are just about ready to implode on themselves. You don't want to have a guitar that you can't touch without it bursting apart. You definitely don't want a guitar that will take 5 of us sitting on it together. It's basically a balance of letting the guitar be very vibrational, very responsive to vibrations. I guess what you're looking for is a more updated way to give a top a lot of strength and responsiveness. And I'm dying to really hear this in person, to think that you can make the argument a heavily braced guitar is not going to vibrate much. When you scallop the braces, you're going to allow more vibration. Now you're actually hollowing out to some degree some of the scalloped bracing. It feels like you're making the guitar weaker in a very positive way as far as tone. And, talking about this without playing it first, I would have to bet it takes less energy to get the top moving while still retaining enough strength and composure that these guitars aren't going to come back to the factory after 2 weeks for a warranty repair.
Well, yes, and again, it's not the entire brace of the X brace. It's only at the thickest part before the scalloped section comes down, and they're not doing it to the tone bars. What they are doing to the tone bars and the rest of the top is they are putting in channels. They are carving in channels around the edge of the top, and also around the bridge plate and around all of the tone bars. So that also is supposed to, I must assume, increase resonance. So the area of the top around the bracing, basically every place there is a brace, has a very thin channel carved in to the top. And I know some people immediately mention the bracing that Taylor came out with a few years ago, where they have their patented much larger channel that goes around the edge of the top. And this is clearly a similar concept, but the channels are much, much tinier and narrower and basically all over the place. And so that's also just absolutely fascinating how the combination of that, having the X brace lighter weight right at the center basically the top would be the most rigid, having that lightening up, and that area and all the other braced areas and the bridge plate all surrounded by these tone enhancing channels. So that's quite fascinating. But there's more to this guitar than the bracing and the channels on the top. All of the back bracing has these new honeycomb geometric shaped holes in them, and to make the back more flexible as well. And most people know that the acoustic guitar's back is primarily there for structure and strength and as a reflective surface to reflect the sound waves around. And it doesn't have doesn't add a lot to reverb or resonance. So this probably will enhance the flexibility of the back for additional resonance. And like you said, can't wait to actually see one of these. I've never seen one of these completed, and so I'm looking very forward to it. It makes sense that they're using a GPC. The Grand Performance is, other than the S special 13 fret SC models, is the only really modern Martin body size. And of course, it was inspired by the other small jumbo guitars out there, like the Taylor size 14s, the old Gibson, I think it's the 160, and of course the various people, independent luthiers who have been making guitars like this for long before Martin did. So for those who are not familiar, Grand Performance, how would you describe the Grand Performance compared to the OM size and the Dreadnought, and the M for that matter?
You made it sound easy for a moment, but then you brought in the M. The GP, it's interesting. I think of the GP as a mini jumbo sound, and to me it has a lot to do with when you go from OM to Grand Performance to an M to a Dreadnought, all other things being equal, I really think it's about the low mid-range and the bass and how much the mid-range stands out. And I haven't played a ton of Grand Performance guitars, frankly. For every GP or GPC we've ever sold here at the store, there just been 10 Dreadnoughts and 20 OMs. It's not a model that I have an extreme immediate memory of, but it's a thicker low end for sure than an OM, but it's not as boomy, and maybe the bass is not as surround sound like as most Dreadnoughts could be. So it's kind of like a focused low mid-range, low end that if you want some more muscle on the bass E string coming from an OM, this will give you that, but it's not going to fool you into closing your eyes and thinking that you're playing a Dreadnought-sized guitar. It's kind of a middle ground, and that would be a really interesting comparison if we ever have the opportunity to really play a GP or a GPC that's built literally exactly like an M would be, because I often talk about the M in the same way, where if you want an OM and you want to compare that to a Dreadnought, the M is a really nice middle ground. This is kind of another middle ground with its own sonic signature, and probably from memory, I would think the mid-range is a little bit scooped on a Grand Performance if you're comparing it to an M. But as I say that, on a off the cuff on a podcast, I really would like an opportunity to play a few to see if I'm remembering correctly, but that's what's coming to mind.
Well, yes, I think that's right on. I think of the GPC as having a little fuller, rounder, or tubbier lower mid and bass, but not nearly the colossal bass that you get out of a Dreadnought. And so they are. A lot of people really like the balance, but I don't think they are as evenly balanced as you get from an M or an OM for that matter. So that's another interesting thing about this. They wanted to do this. They're calling this a new era. So they're using what is arguably the most popular body style of the 21st century with this new bracing. But this is also being made with maple. It's got maple sides, and the back is maple, but it's got a black walnut center wedge. And so they're using, so it's a maple Martin, but it's using a body size and giving it a center wedge that should add a little more oomph to the sound of maple, which is basically famous or infamous for not having a very complex tone and being brighter. And people don't think of it as being a particularly bassy tone unless you get into those huge bodies like a Gibson Super Jumbo or those big jazz guitars. So there will be certainly more said, and has been more said about this model. So just to recap it, this is a long scale Grand Performance guitar with a cutaway that has maple for the back, sides, and top, but it's got a center wedge, and it's not a Style 35 center wedge. It's a different shape. It's not set at such an extreme angle. And then also it's got the new Inception top and bracing, and the Inception bracing on the back. And it also has an acoustic electric with LR Baggs pickup system involved. So a very cool guitar. The bracing itself is made from Forest Stewardship Council certified European spruce, and it's definitely going to open some eyes at NAMM and probably a lot of ears too. So, I'll just put a shout out for my own website, One Man's Guitar, onemans.com. I will definitely be having a review video of this, out as soon as I'm allowed to record it and mix it, which will probably be, it'll be on the, out in the internet before the NAMM show ends. I'll put it that way.
Looking forward to that. So, not to gloss over anything too quickly, but this whole episode is going to be your, what's a better word for refresher? Because it isn't a refresher. This is all brand new information. But
primer. Well, I know we talked a long time about that model. We don't have as much time to spend on some of these other models, but there's some really cool ones. And this is basically an overview of what's coming out from Martin at the 2024 NAMM show.
Exactly right. And if you're listening at home and you thought, well, that's the only new thing from Martin this year, I don't think it is. Raise your hand if you're one of the billions of people who are asking for a standard series version of the SC guitars. Can I say your ship has come in? Is that the right phrase?
Absolutely. This has been in the works for a very, 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 very long time. And because CF Martin sometimes holds things up longer than they expected or whatever, I was honestly surprised that they finally got the go-ahead on these two new SC models.
SC18E and SC28E. The SC13E a few years ago paved the way, and as soon as that guitar came out, you just knew the dominoes were going to fall. This guitar was probably built right after that one and went through more than a few iterations. I know you got to play a few of them long before anybody even knew they were in the works, but put yourself in their shoes. Your Martin guitar, you've designed the SC13E. It's so revolutionary, and you chose to launch it in the Road Series, knowing all the while that it's only going to be a matter of moments or days or weeks until somebody wants to see, what does this sound like? What does this cost? What does this do when you give it the traditional standard series treatment that so many people just are clamoring for? And I was part of it on the receiving end. I was a dealer and a player and a forum member and a Facebook group enthusiast, and everywhere you looked, as soon as the SC13E hit the ground and got some traction, this was basically inevitable. The SC28E, I'll start there. You're basically getting everything you liked about the original SC13E, but now you're in the standard series. You have solid tone woods, solid rosewood back and sides. It still has the same Sure-Align neck system. It's probably quicker to say this is the standard series version of an SC13E. But Spoon, can you nail down some of the key differences that might be apparent? Because it's not fair to say that it looks like a 13E.
Well, it also has some features that were introduced on the special custom shop SC model that had come out recently. And so it's got the new tone enhancement channel that is designed to enhance the bass response. So that's one difference. But yes, it's basically got the same construction inside. These are 13 fret guitars. They're long scale, but they feel like a short scale because of where the body is in relation to the guitarist's body, and where the bass side comes around and meets the neck at the 13th fret, and then it's got this extra deep cutaway, but the asymmetrical body has the bottom bout shifted on the treble side, so it's farther to the right than the bass side. So it's basically, it's like you took a traditional Martin, like let's say triple O or OM, and you were able to take that bottom side where the waist is and push it off to the right so that you get to have a nice cutaway space that gets all the way up the neck. And because of because there's no heel on this Sure-Align neck system, you basically can keep your wrist in the correct position to make bar chords basically all the way up to like the 20th fret. It's pretty remarkable. And the shifting of the body like that means that you're taking away less of the sound chamber for the cutaway. So you still get a surprisingly nice big voice. I was playing the 13E Special with the Zero back inside at the factory a couple of days ago, and really was reminded of how nice that sounded. And as an acoustic guitar, they of course sound spectacularly plugged in. Another major difference of these two guitars is they both get LR Baggs Anthem systems with the control right inside the treble side of the sound hole. So that's a big difference from other SC models. And so this is, when we say this is the standard series version, one thing that makes it different from all previous standard series guitars is it does not have a traditional dovetail neck joint. It's got this Sure-Align neck system with what they call a linear dovetail neck joint, which is frankly a marketing term because they wanted to find a way to use the word dovetail. But it was something that was originally invented using digital printer technology. And it allows you to adjust the neck with some pre-made shims inside. Not you have to go to a Martin technician to be able to do this, but you can change the angle so you can have super low action like an electric guitar with super light strings, or you can put on heavier strings and have them adjust the angle to have more like an acoustic guitar height to the strings. It's an amazing technology that allows for an amazing acoustic electric guitar experience. Again, 13th fret neck, amazingly balanced. People have heard me talk about these before. The bracing is unique. You have scallop bracing on the treble side, non-scalloped on the bass side, because the asymmetrical bracing, there isn't a lot of bracing on the bass side, so they want thicker bracing there. But how does this compare in terms of style 18? Well, it looks basically like a D18, and it looks basically like a D28, except, of course, you got the special pickguard they use, and that you use on SCs, but it is a tortoiseshell, but it's the same kind of cosmetics, including open back tuners, that you get from the standard series.
Yep, and it's not a big deal, but Ramin and Tim would always like us to say plates, not shims. So I'll give you a pass this time, but don't do it again.
Oh, quite so. They're plates. They're plates that help shim the neck joint.
We talk about shims when we buy a new refrigerator like Lori and I just did. That's where you use a shim. But of course, I'm just being facetious. And any opportunity I get, it almost never happens. I have to jump at you with both fists. But that was a good, I liked everything else about that, so I can't fault you. But I do want to say that I have noticed something on the spec sheets, and it goes without saying, it's not out of this world to recognize every once in a while when there's a new product launch. Some of the specs are either typos or they change, but these, interestingly enough, are both listed with bone saddles, and that is a first from what I could tell. When Martin puts pickups in guitars, almost all the time they'll use synthetic saddles, and this time they chose compensated bone. So let's watch that closely, especially when we get to play these guitars in real life. If they're correct in saying that, you're getting a bone saddle too.
Yeah, that's a very good catch. I'll have to. I have a feeling that you're right. It might be a mistake. They just found in their testing, since bone is porous and can have tiny little air pockets, that sometimes you can end up with uneven volume across the strings, which is why they tend to go with a inert synthetic material that is very good at transmitting vibrations. So I'll be curious to find out if they really have bone saddles or not. But maybe they do. Maybe they went with that because it's standard series, but I suspect some office worker copied over the spec sheets from the D18 and the D28, and that was a spec that should have been changed and wasn't. So good catch there, Sherlock. Good catch.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And again, we're not going to stay too long on any certain model on this overview podcast, but we are happy to bring you as much new information as we can of these new models, NAMM time from Martin Guitar. And I'll say, Spoon, it's pretty exciting when the SC18E and the SC28E are not the most revolutionary guitars at this launch. That's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, that's a very good point. And, I remember playing the first solid Indian Rosewood Sitka-topped SC prototype, and I had just played what eventually became called the SC13E, and plugged in to the same amp, and it went woo because of that. Because the solid wood, you couldn't turn the amp up as loud, and you just because of the all solid wood, and so but the ones that had the laminated wood, you could. And the whole point of these, really, in my mind, is it's really designed for electric guitarists to be able to plug in an acoustic electric guitar into the exact same rig they use, and just go for it with the amazingly comfortable neck. The asymmetrical neck shape is amazingly comfortable. And have long scale but feel like a short scale because of how close it is to the neck joint is to your body. All that stuff. And when they came out with their custom shop model that had solid wood, they had to come up with a way to deal with the feedback. And one of the things they did was come up with that new tone channel that's in these guitars as well. So while they may have a little more feedback issue at really high volumes compared to the non-solid wood, I think people who really want acoustic guitar first and foremost, but in an SC model, will be very happy with these guitars.
For a split second, you almost sounded like Homer when he was singing along to Lucky Man by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but I got distracted and I'm back on track. I don't mean to leave the program for a minute, but you got to find that if you haven't seen it.
You made it mention cutting edge. I want to jump to the opposite. I want to jump to the new custom K1 Major Kealaki. This, as some of you know, they came out with a Major Kealaki model already. Major Kealaki was a giant superstar in Hawaiian music in the early 20th century, at a time when Hawaiian music had come over in the 1912 San Francisco exhibition, or the Pan Asian exhibition, I think was what it was called, and just took the American world by storm. And that's where everybody started getting ukuleles and hula girls, all that stuff, and Hawaii and Hawaiian culture really took off in the American imagination. And Kealaki was one of the major music stars, and Martin Guitar was one of the first, if not the only, originally musical instrument maker on the mainland that embraced Hawaiian music and started making steel string guitars for people to play Hawaiian style lap steel and ukuleles. And Kealaki came to them and asked them, he had been playing a triple O, which was the biggest size they made at the time, and he asked them to make an even bigger guitar. And everybody at Martin had forgotten all about this until Greg Hutton, the archivist, found the correspondence between Frank Henry Martin and Major Kealaki. And they had made him what we now consider the first dreadnought, or the Ur guitar that led to John Dykman inventing the first true dreadnought body size. These are not as big as those 12-fret dreadnoughts, but they're pretty close. But it's definitely bigger than a 12-fret triple O. And I loved the Kealaki. What most people didn't love about it was this gigantic ebony bridge on it. And so I know for a fact a lot of people said, I love this guitar, but I hate that bridge. So Martin's coming out with a second version with a smaller bridge that has a decorative, still it's modern. It's like a traditional pyramid bridge, but it's the fancy one they've used in a few other limited editions that has a little bit of a decorative point behind the pins. So it's a much smaller bridge, but certainly good enough to withstand the string tension from this. And otherwise, it's built like an authentic series instrument in terms of the construction and the bracing and that kind of stuff.
Yes, and not throwing shade at all to the lucky people who were able to buy the original version, because there are some fans out there who are more than happy about every little detail, and I'm not sure if I'm right to say it, but you might have a collector's item on your hands.
Well, and the one thing I just, as a caveat, I haven't actually looked inside one of these, so I'm assuming it's got the same bracing as the Kealaki. And in fact, it does. I know it does. I'm sorry, I completely forgot. Yeah, it does. It has the bracing that they used on the D28 Authentic 1931. That's the bracing. The original Kealaki didn't have bracing anything like that. It had probably ladder bracing and was very lightly based and meant to be played with slack keyed strings and stuff like that. So basically, this looks like the Kealaki shape of that original supersized dreadnought. And I'm trying to remember what year this would have been. It probably was 1916, I think, was the year that he had asked Martin to build the guitar, and Martin said they would. And but this has a 1930s construction, so you can put 13s on. You can put medium gauge strings on it without any problem, or light gauge strings, and it's actually, this is the other big difference. It's Madagascar rosewood. So this is a Madagascar rosewood guitar in the Kealaki shape with VTS Adirondack spruce. So another one that I've not seen completely constructed, and looking very forward to playing and getting a review video of.
And we're looking very forward to seeing what you think so far. If you're watching the YouTube version of this podcast during the premiere, please let us know in the comments section. What do you think so far about Martin's new offerings? And are you thinking like I am, that everything we talked about so far is pretty pricey, and maybe some of you guys wish that we would talk about something a little bit more affordable? Not unlike the reimagined Standard Series back in 2018, we do have some exciting news to share with you, that there's something called the Remastered X Series. Spoon, what do you know about the new X Series, and what is remastered about them?
Well, they put a lot of thought into this. One of the really cool things is they're using the wood imagery they're using on these X series, these HPLs, is really beautiful. So you get a whole new slew of wood patterns that were taken from really gorgeous high-end tone woods. So, for me, that's kind of the coolest thing. They're saying that they've made changes to it to enhance playability, including a comfort bevel edge. So this is not something Martin has really done much ever. There have been like a scant number of special limited editions that have had bevels. So they have a bevel, they have a tweaked string spacing, and they have something that they had, may have come from the Rich Robinson guitar originally, I don't know, but they have a smoother, and certainly the SC models, they have a smoother bridge to them. So when you are playing, palm muting on the bridge, it doesn't like stab into your hand. So it's a different bridge contour that makes it smoother. And then of course they are focusing even more on using materials that come from environmentally responsible sources. So that's all good. And there's other stuff that the E1 electronics they have has the built-in tuner, which I really love, and as well as volume and tone controls. They have Stratobon necks that are very comfortable and look very cool. So very very good-looking guitars with pretty sound. And then you have the more expensive models that have a 2 at the end. So that's the 1 models that have a Stratobon neck. The 2 models actually have spruce tops. They're not HPL tops. And they also get a select hardwood neck. So you're getting a wooden neck and a wooden top for the X2 models. When I say more expensive, they're still not very expensive at all compared to other Martin models. So you get some really beautiful Cocobolos, and for the first time, Brazilian rosewood pattern for the 2s. The ones you can have in Koa and mahogany, and some of the 2s also have mahogany ziricote and as well. So and they're still going to have their at least one black model. I don't remember what size it is, but you can also get a black X. I think it might be a GPC, if I remember correctly. I don't remember now. But and there's at least one sunburst in the dreadnoughts. So So some very cool looking guitars, and I love the Koa one. The Koa, it's like figured, rippled Koa, but very straight grain, very cool looking Koa. That is, of course, used for the top and back, but is really just an image of beautiful Koa. But it's gorgeous looking guitar.
And you mentioned the bevel on the fingerboard. They also list something called refined string spacing. Are you familiar with what they mean there? Is it literally a difference in width, or are they just addressing the ease near the end of the fingerboard?
I actually don't, but I have a feeling it means something's been tweaked because of the bevel on the... By the way, I want to make sure people understand the bevel's not on the body like you get on certain brands of guitars. We're talking about on the fingerboard. So it's something they're doing to the fingerboard, to the edge of the fingerboard to make it more comfortable. And I imagine that they had to do something to the string spacing to accommodate that or to work well with it. So even though you have the same string spacing at the pins, my guess is they're tweaking the string spacing at the nut so that it is that the E strings are in a position that work well with the bevel, probably to prevent them from like popping off the frets, like we all know some modern Martins can do. Because of that 2 and 5/32 inch string spacing.
Perfect. That's what I thought you were going to say. And we'll also keep our finger on the pulse. If we get some more credible information down the line, we'll be sure to add it into the show notes. But I think you're right. And I think it's time we talk about not our anniversary and not the anniversary of the Tuck Rule. Let's talk about the DCFM, the fourth 50th anniversary. We have two guitars to talk about, Spoon. Which one are you going to get for me, and which one do you want to talk about first?
I think I'm going to get you, if you're very nice and very good this year, little Maury, the DCFM, the fourth 50th anniversary that's built in Navajo, Mexico, while you're going to get me the one that's built in Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Saw that coming.
So the one that's built in Mexico, it is where the X series are built, and it's where the strings are made, and it's where the Road series comes from, and most of the SC models and all of that. And this is a very beautiful looking dreadnought, and it's got what they call pommel sapelli back and sides and a bear claw spruce top. Now pommel is the anglicized pronunciation of the French word pommelli or pommelé, that basically means dappled. So it's a highly figured, very little dapples all over the place. So it looks really cool when the light hits it. And then it's got a very fancy rosette and a fancy tree of life inlay on the fingerboard, and that matches the fancy, I think it's probably Paua, which is the abalone from New Zealand, or the South Seas out by New Zealand and Australia. And so really gorgeous, blue pearl, blue Paua, and they only making 50 of them for sale worldwide. And then there's the bigger boy that is the tribute to Chris Martin's 50 years of service to the company. And this is made with Guatemalan rosewood back and sides and really busy bear claw spruce top, flame maple binding, and it's got a very intricate abalone inlay. So it is, which is abalone and mother pearl. And they're only making 50 of those too. So if you're long in the pockets, this will be a serious collector's item. That'll be absolutely stunning in your collection. And if you're not so long, the one that's being made at the Navajo, they've been in business for 35 years themselves. They recently had their anniversary. And so you have two Chris Martin 50th anniversary models to choose from.
So congratulations, Chris, on 50 years of service. This is a really, really cool way to tribute that. And I'm dying to see both of them, frankly.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And they I'm hoping they'll have them done by the show. I know there was some things going on with the one that's being made in Nazareth that was delaying them a little bit, and I'm not sure if it was design tweaking, like as he's famous for doing, saying, "No, I think I like this one better," or if it was, or if it's just the amount of pearl work that goes into them has them slightly behind schedule. But I can't imagine they're not going to have at least one of them finished for the show. I'm hoping they have 2 finished, so I get to play one at the factory when I go there to do my reviews.
Well, watch what I talk about next. What do you know about the OM 20th Century Limited? And if I say 20 at this part of the show, do you want to talk about a guitar or do you want to ask me some questions?
Well, let's see. If you're ready to do a round of 20 questions, we can do a round of 20 questions.
20 questions.
20 questions is the game where one of us gets 20 questions to guess the Martin model that the other person's thinking about. Now, these are models that are still available for somewhere out there in the United States of America, and perhaps right here at Maury's Music. And 3 of those questions can be model name guesses. Today, the smart guy, being Maury, is going to think of a Martin guitar that's available for sale. And I, the wise guy, gets 20 questions to guess what guitar that is.
20 questions on the clock, and go.
Is this guitar going to be new for January 2024?
No. Nice try.
Is this guitar made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Is this guitar made with the dreadnought body shape?
Yes.
Is this guitar a member of the Modern Deluxe series?
No.
Does this guitar have pearl inlay anywhere on the top?
No.
Is this guitar made with mahogany back and sides?
Yes.
Is this guitar made in the Standard series?
Yes.
Is this guitar Standard series D18?
No.
So this is a mahogany dreadnought in the Standard series, but it's not the D18. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Does this guitar have a satin finish?
No.
I thought you were going to try to trick me and say the D18 satin was a new model. Oh, it was a different model. Okay, so it's a gloss mahogany Martin in the Standard series. So it can't be a limited edition or a special edition. Standard series, mahogany Martin. What could it possibly be that isn't?
I have a half a correction. Some of this guitar is satin, and I was wrong to say the answer was no.
Then I'll rephrase that question. Does this guitar have a satin finish on the back sides and top?
Yes. I was wrong to say that earlier. It is satin backsides and top.
I see.
I tried,
So
people.
is it so is it the D18 satin?
No.
What? Now we're talking, so this is a dreadnought, mahogany back and sides. Oh, what do they call them? What do they call them? Oh, what do they call them? What do they call them? They call them.
Do we have to listen to you?
They're a registered trademark name, and they are. Hold on a second. Oh! This is the Kurt Cobain guitar. Okay, this is the D18 that has the photographic painting of Kurt Cobain's old D18, and they don't call them Street Masters. What the heck do they call them? They call them.
Wonder if I'm a nice enough guy just to say you got it. Nah.
Okay. All right. How about these are the not street players. These are how many guesses do I get?
8.
Well, no, but I already guessed D18 and D18 satin.
Oh, model name guesses. You only got 1 left. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. I'm going to guess.
Would you like to buy a hint?
No. I'm going to guess that this is the D18.
I can't watch you suffer. Let me give you a hint.
I know, Artist Master. I don't know. I can't remember what they're called. I can't believe I can't remember what they're called.
It's a D18, and there is the word street in it.
Yes, I know, but I can't think of what the last word is. So it's not Street Master.
So it's the D18 street blank, and the second part of that street name, there is a famous artist, maybe in the last 15 years, a famous vocalist. His last name is the second part of this title.
The Street Bolton?
It's the D18 street legend.
Oh, Street Legend. Oh, I knew they didn't have a Michael Bolton model, but the Street Sheeran.
Yeah.
Oh, John Legend.
Yes.
John Legend. I was like, who's named Legend? Oh, John Legend. Okay.
So
I'll buy that for $1.
Let's be real. I was being mean for like the last 30, 40 seconds. You had this all sewn up. As soon as I remember to tell you that it is satin.
Well, I'm glad you brought that back to my mind because I had totally forgotten that they did that with the D28 and the D18. They made the satin finish, but they also used the technology with the printer to make them look like vintage guitars. And I know they're very polarizing, but I sure know a lot of people who liked the looks of them and would be very happy to be seen like through the window of a cafe playing one of those things and thinking, everybody thinks that he's got a vintage Martin, and why not? But anyway, yeah, cool, and the cool guitars.
Good for you. That was a fun round, and it's always fun playing 20 questions with the spoon.
I think the word that comes to mind, or the phrase that comes to mind, is ratfink.
But as I so cleverly teased a few minutes ago, we are not done talking about 20. The OM 20th Century Limited is the next guitar we'd like to gloss over and quickly tell you about from the new NAMM releases from Martin Guitar. And watch out, Spoon knows lots about this one.
Not really. I mean, this is the second model they have done in homage, or in some respects collaboration with the famous watchmaker from Pennsylvania that is RGM. And
that's why I said watch out.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Continue.
But so RGM makes high-end watches. Many people at Martin are very into modern design. You're talking about Tim Teal, Jeff Allen, Fred Green. The list goes on and on. Chris Martin, very interested in stuff like automotive engineering and design. Some people will remember there were some guitars that Martin put out that actually had like orange and blue binding that was inspired by a particular automotive design. High-end knives and watches, and so this was one of the things that they were very into and found very inspiring. Now, the 20th Century Limited was a famous locomotive and one of the great trains back in the great Art Deco era, and they had the 20th century was like, if you were anybody famous, from Babe Ruth to John Barrymore to whoever. In fact, John Barrymore was in the movie called 20th Century that was set on the 20th Century Limited. But anyway, this was inspired by that era, and it has interesting designs. It's got an interesting bridge. It's very tastefully done. You really have to see this thing to understand it. It doesn't look like any other Martin you can think of, other than the body shape, which is basically that of a triple O, and or maybe it's OM. It's a long scale guitar. It's a OM basically, and very nice woods, Guatemalan rosewood back and sides, and flame maple binding, and they're only making like 20 of them. So basically the design stuff was inspired by and partially created by the people at RGM in collaboration with Martin. And it's a very cool looking guitar. I can definitely see people who aren't normally into that sort of thing and don't care about trains or watches will buy this either purely on how great it sounds or because of the really unusual, cool designs. And we all know there are many guitars that Martin makes that are over the top in terms of themes and designs that are not for everyone. This, I think, is more subtly done. It's just very unusual by Martin standards, and I think it's a very good-looking instrument. And for people who like to collect interesting, beautiful guitars, this certainly qualifies.
I have been waiting 3 seasons and 3 episodes to use that sound. Would you believe it?
Choose me. You could have done it for Valentine's Day.
Sit down, Ralph.
I'm in danger. Okay. There's some obscure Simpsons references for you all. Name that episode. Okay. So, and then we got some other ones here. We have a very beautiful hand-painted top that's appearing at NAMM that Robert Getzel did that are, I believe, koi fish. They look like koi fish, but they look like very big Asian catfish under lily pads with one beautiful lotus flower floating on it. So that's a very beautiful. You know that Robert Getzel is been involved with Martin for a very long time and created the painting in the lobby and have recreated a bunch of limited edition painting for various guitars. And this is the D. Robert Getzel 7. So for people who like his work and have always wanted to own one of his very limited instruments, that's for you for this year at the NAMM. And what else can we recommend for this year's NAMM situation?
Well, I just got to chime in and say Robert Getzel is good people, and hopefully we get to meet up with him again next time we both get to the factory for all these new guitars. But we did talk a lot about guitars so far, and I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about a ukulele or ukulele.
Ukulele, the TKE, uke. Martin first started making tenor ukes in 1929, so well into the Hawaiian craze. They had not made tenor ukes before then, and they made those really small soprano ukes. But anyway, this is an acoustic electric uke with a special pickup in it. So,
right.
So it's actually a chargeable pickup that can play for 16 hours on a 60-second charge, so they claim. It is the MISI or MIC electronics or MISI maybe is what they call it, what they say. So for people who like ukuleles, want a select hardwood neck, this has any rosewood bridge, and it's made from solid koa. So it's not going to be all that easy on the wallet because it's all solid wood. This is a full-blown professional level all solid wood ukulele. And it's got beautiful koa. It's got a decorative rosette and what appears to be little abalone microdots on the fretboard and rosewood bridge and board. Aloha, Bobby and Rose. Never saw that picture, but
Oh, yeah. And I don't know if it matters to a lot of people listening, but I'm not as much of a ukulele enthusiast as I am guitar, but something that really opened my eyes a lot, a few months ago, our friend Dee Dasher came in, and we spent the afternoon where she played a lot of our in-stock ukuleles back to back to back. Not just her own opinion, but we both really got an opportunity to study these really closely, and having an afternoon where you played them all, top to bottom. The solid wooden ukes really did have a lot of a tone that you really couldn't get from something like an HPL. Not to say there isn't a place for those, and especially in a budget, but me getting to really photograph and record her and be the one producing the session, I got to really listen, 4 feet away from what she was doing. And these Martin ukuleles made with solid tone woods really do have resonance and projection that you really can't replace. So I have a lot to learn when it comes to really deciphering, specific models A versus B. But when you get into the wooden ukuleles and the solid tone woods, apart from the HPL, it's really easy for me to hear for sure.
Well, yes, and Martin was the premier ukulele maker in America, really from the start of the Hawaiian music craze in the 19-teens. And while there were plenty of companies that were making them in California and Mexico in the old days as well, Martin was basically considered the Stradivarius of ukuleles at that time. And even on up into the folk era of the 50s, and then they briefly made that baritone B1 mahogany uke in 61 and 62, I think. And those are very sweet guitars that you can basically tune like a guitar, just the bottom 4 strings of a guitar. And but the ones they're making now are very, very well made, and certainly competitive on the world level, and including the small makers in Hawaii in terms of quality professional level ukuleles.
Well, you said aloha, and I don't know if unconsciously this is going to be the end of the episode, but it is time for us to say aloha to all of our friends, and we do hope you appreciated this overview of the 2024 Martin Guitars and Ukes for 2024 NAMM. Again, whether it's in the comments section or the live chat or an email to us later, please take a moment, let us know what you're most looking forward to. If any of you guys are lucky enough, by the time you heard this show, have you actually seen or played one of these new Martin guitars? Please let us know what you think. Spoon, can I ask you off the cuff, what are you most looking forward to? Can you narrow it down to one instrument?
No, I cannot. I'm looking very forward to the CS18E. I've said to many people inside the factory, when you make one of these and all solid wood out of mahogany, let me know. Unfortunately, I'm in no position to be buying guitars right now, but I'm going to definitely keep my eye on that. And I'm looking very forward to being able to compare the rosewood and mahogany side by side, so that I can really make up my mind that when the time comes for me to get one, I will already know which one I'm going to get. So I could say that. I could see the SC18, but I'm also just absolutely drooling in anticipation of the new GPCE Inception Maple. Really cool to see what the new tops and bracing is going to do to a grand performance body size, and I'm looking forward to what will almost certainly be dreadnoughts and other body sizes in the future made with this new technology.
Well, that's fair. You get to pick 2 and I don't get to pick any.
No, I didn't say you didn't get to pick any, but I know that what you're really looking forward to is the same ones that I said.
Well, especially the GPCE, and it's funny, we talked about that first. It's interesting, we're going to finally get to see what skeletonized scallop bracing and all these sonic channels sound like, and the practical side of my brain would want to hear what that sounds like on a platform that I'm very familiar with. We're going to finally get to hear the SC18E against a D18. We're going to get to hear the SC18E against an SC13E. This is a little bit strange because we're going to get a really revolutionary new top design and bracing pattern, but the back and sides, are so off the wall. There's talk about no frame of reference. How many other guitars from Martin are you familiar with where it's a maple back and sides with a walnut wedge? It's just nothing about this guitar is routinely routine except the neck and the headstock. So it's going to be a real wow factor. And we'll have
it's a good thing that you brought that up. It even has a new sunburst they have never used before. So it's like a very it's similar to like a subtle amber burst, but that's also part of this is that Martin wants to start using more domestic tone woods, and so in other words, we're going to start seeing more maple Martins. That's my guess. We're going to start seeing more walnut Martins, and we may even see sycamores and other things because of they're committed to this environmental sustainability drive that is happening around the planet, and so they want to start using more tone wood. So I wouldn't be surprised if we only see the new bracing on domestic tone woods for right now. I know they want to try to get, and they're not alone. Bob Taylor, they came out with an entire series that's just maple guitars, and they stain them dark to look like they're walnut or mahogany because they know people don't like light-colored guitars, but they're maple guitars, and they sell very well. And I think Martin is probably, I know they want to embrace being able to use American-grown sustainable tone woods. So that's part of it too. It's not just the new technology. But it's typical for Chris Martin to introduce those kind of concepts on a new fancy limited edition. So yes, we have a lot of new interesting things about this model. And like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the Dreadnought version, which will probably be coming at some point, and the OM, and certainly. And eventually, custom shop orders with this new technology, all that sort of thing. So I think it's the most exciting NAMM show from Martin since before the pandemic. So it's great to see. It's going to be a great NAMM show for Martin and a lot of other makers.
I really think so too, Spoon. Let's see what happens with this new NAMM show, and we do hope to get our hands on all these models as fast as possible. From all of us at Martins and More, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.